was out before he hit the canvas.
At a minute 58.
That's it. Stop the fight. Stop the fight. It's over.
Boxing is one of the most famous contact sports in the world. In the middle of the last century, with the beginning of the era of television, boxing acquired the status of the most popular martial art in the world. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the history of boxing from the perspective of the best boxing fights, which had a huge, epic-making significance in the history of boxing. These are legendary fights that filled huge stadiums, grabbed the attention of hundreds of millions of spectators, and forever changed the history of boxing itself. If you enjoyed watching this episode on our channel, please click the thumbs up and subscribe to the world of boxing. Here, we grab a sense of nostalgia and recall the best fights in the ring, which go down in the annals of boxing history. For the first time in boxing history, 3 belts were on the line in a super lightweight match. WBA and WBC world champion 32-year-old Kostya Tszyu versus 24-year-old IBF champion Zab Judah. Judah became the interim IBF champion at 21, and at 22 won the full title. After that, he defended his belt 5 times and won 4 times ahead of schedule. With such a track record, Judah entered the main fight of his career for the title of absolute world champion against Kostya Tszyu, who, in addition to being the owner of 2 belts, was considered the strongest super lightweight boxer. On top of that, Tszyu was in the ranking of the top 10 boxers in the world, outside the pound-for-pound category. Moreover, being number 5 in the list, he was ahead of such boxers such as Lennox Lewis, Joe Calzaghe, Felix Trinidad, Shane Mosley, and Marco Antonio Barrera, and was behind Bernard Hopkins, Floyd Mayweather, Roy Jones, and Oscar de la Hoya. Even with these merits, Tszyu entered the fight as an underdog. Judah was considered the favorite at 3-1. Zab was an incredibly gifted boxer, and the overwhelming majority of fans and experts believed that his talent would be too much for Tszyu. To many people, the only thing that mattered was that Judah had no losses. But Tszyu's early defeat from Vince Phillips 4 years earlier was not forgotten by the public. However, some hesitated to predict the outcome of this fight because Tszyu, to his credit, had won battles against rivals such as Roger Mayweather, Miguel Angel Gonzalez, and Julio Cesar Chavez. Judah's only notable opponent was Mickey Ward, who at that time was not a full-time boxer. At the weigh-in before the fight, Tszyu taunted his opponent Judah, who recently had a child named Destiny. Tszyu asked Judah, "How is your destiny?" Tszyu believed he would add this fight to his destiny. The usual lively and talkative Judah had no response. The referee of this fight was Jay Nady. Little did he know that after the fight he would become a central character in what was happening. Regarding their weights, on Friday at the official weigh-in, it was necessary for the fighters to meet an official limit of 63.5 kilograms. On Monday, a little more than 4 days before weighing, Tszyu's weight was 71.7 kilograms. So within 4 days, Costa lost 8 kilograms. After weighing in, he usually regained about 6 or 7 kilograms and went into his fights with a weight of about 69 to 70 kilograms.
Both respect each other, but they're not intimidated. No telling exactly.
Judah went out to box in his usual style, relying on his natural abilities, but Tszyu had a clear plan. From the very first seconds, he began to implement this plan, putting constant pressure on his opponent. However, this pressure exerted by Tszyu had only a minimal effect, as Judah was not concerned by the aggression. Zab waited for the right moment and attacked with a dangerous blow from the left, hoping to mount a successful attack. However, his attack was quickly suppressed by Tszyu with a clinch.
Timing shot here, Steve. They both go to throw punches, and there's an uppercut. Zab Judah lands first. And again, Kostya Tszyu cannot back up straight like that. Judah's just too quick.
Despite what happened, Tszyu did not abandon his plan and continued to press. Judah accepted this and carried out another successful attack and, like a minute earlier, tried following up by jumping in front of his opponent and swinging wildly. Though you couldn't see it, it was at this moment in the fight that Judah's mental state began to change. Zab was used to the fact that his prohibitive hand speed discouraged his rivals so much that after an initial attack, it was possible for him to continue boxing calmly because his opponents would be on the defensive. At the same time, most of Judah's rivals did not have much amateur experience, so it was extremely difficult for them to fight a fast left-hander. Sue had no problems with left-handers. Kostya was not intimidated by Judah's qualities, and he continued to press forward no matter what. At the end of the round, Sue made 2 successful attacks. The second round began the same as the first, but there's an important difference if we compare the movement and position of Sue's body in the first and second rounds. In the first round, Sue kept his body more even and moved forward, but without forcing confrontations. In the second round, he began to be even more active and worked much more with his front hand. In previous fights, Judah's natural talent was enough to favor him as the victor, but when he met with an opponent who combined tactical and mental strength with the highest level of skill, Zab Super Judah suddenly lost his super title. With less than 10 seconds remaining until the end of the fight, Sue delivers a combination of 2 punches. Judah dodges and changes position, but Sue again catches up with him, finding that this combination is quite effective. Kostya sends his opponent to the canvas. Jude gets up, but then falls again, and Jay Nady stops the fight. Before we move on to the events that followed, let's analyze Kostya's attack. As is often the case with physically gifted boxers, since they have phenomenal plasticity and reaction time, they know how to dodge punches extremely well. Because of this, simple boxing rules are often neglected. Rules like keep your hands high and return them to the starting position after an attack. Naturally, Sue noticed this flaw in Judah's style. Zab was dodging, but not defending. Once he calculated this flaw, then nothing could interfere with his attack. When Kostya carried out the first combination, he struck with his right hand towards Judah's head. Zab was ready for this and dodged, though Kostya's glove brushed his jaw. But when Sue attacked with the second combination, he was prepared to outsmart his opponent. Kostya throws out another jab, but this time aims for where he knows Judah will dodge. As a result, Judah helped the attack by putting his jaw right in line with his opponent's fist, showing how important it is to protect your chin. If Judah's gloves had been in the way, the blow would have struck the gloves instead. It also proves that no matter how fast you are and nimble you are, if you repeat the same actions, a high-class opponent will quickly catch on. Moving on to when the fight was stopped. Shortly after this match, a rumor circulated that, according to the rules, if a boxer gets up from a knockdown and falls again, the fight must be stopped. But this rule never existed, and the rumor was dispelled by Nady himself. Indeed, if you study the rules for the fight, you will find that such a rule does not exist. Jay Nady stopped the fight simply because he realized that the fighter was not able to continue. Combined with the fact that Judah fell on his face for a second time, and it is well known that this could be caused by a serious concussion. Therefore, the referee was simply fulfilling his duty to keep the health of the boxers in mind. Another thing to note related to the stoppage. Judah fell the second time 3 seconds before the bell. According to the rules at the time, the bell would not have saved him, because the round would be extended long enough to show that the boxer was able to continue. Nady did not start a count the second time, even though Judah would have essentially gone into a break immediately after getting up. In this case, Nady was most likely lost in time. On the other hand, seeing how Judah's career developed in the future, it is now obvious that continuing this fight would not have changed its outcome. In all of his subsequent fights, when something went wrong with Zab, he ended up losing. Judah was enraged by the stop and attempted to attack the referee, but was quickly pushed back. Though it did not make it into the broadcast footage, after the failure of the first attack, Judah attempted a second attack, this time throwing a stool. Fortunately, there were too many people in the ring for Judah to succeed in his attack. But because of his behavior, he was suspended from boxing for 6 months and fined $75,000. Considering that he had already fought twice that year, his fee for the fight amounted to $1 million. He almost didn't even notice the fine. However, during the hearing, he pleaded guilty and apologized to Jay Nady. As for Sue's fee, according to the official figures, it was $1.5 million. Kostya Tszyu became the first person in super lightweight history to combine 3 major championship titles. The victory over Judah became the largest and most talked about in his career.
When you fight for undisputed champion of the world, great opponent out in the second round, this is great result. And I believe why it's happened, because hours and hours and hours in preparation, dedication, motivation, just particularly for this particular moment. As I said in the press conference, this is my destiny, and I really believe this. I really believe that this is my destiny, and it is my destiny.
11 years later, Tszyu and Judah met in Moscow and met as if they were old friends. Judah said that before the fight, he did not perceive Tszyu as a rival and anticipated a win for himself. But Zab also admitted that the results of the fight taught him a lot. Tszyu, after this fight, successfully defended the title of absolute world champion twice more and reached number 3 in the pound-for-pound ranking. March 8, 1971, Madison Square Garden Arena, New York. World heavyweight champion 27-year-old Joe Frazier defends his title against former world heavyweight champion 29-year-old Muhammad Ali. Protesting against the Vietnam War and refusing to serve in the Army had cost Ali his boxing license and a world title. In his absence, Jimmy Ellis took over the WBA title, but lost the next fight, allowing 1964 Olympic champion Joe Frazier to take the belt away from him. At stake in the Ellis-Frazier fight, besides the WBA title, for the first time in the super heavyweight history, was the WBC title. Before meeting Frazier, Ali had 2 fights in less than 2 months, defeating strong rivals Jerry Quarry and Oscar Bonavena. Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali's fight was dubbed the fight of the century, the most anticipated and most expensive confrontation of that time. The boxers were guaranteed $2.5 million each, at the time setting a record for the payout. 20,455 tickets were sold at the gate, netting $1.3 million alone. From ringside, the fight was broadcast in 12 languages to an audience of about 300 million people worldwide. Joe Frazier had 26 wins with 23 knockouts and no real defeats. Ali had 31 wins, 25 knockouts, and no losses. Both boxers were Olympic champions. If not for some legal trouble, thoughts of retiring from boxing, and even spending 10 days in prison, Ali would have been the sure favorite. But given these circumstances, Frazier was the favorite with a minimal advantage. Frazier is known for his brutal left hook, but it took him a while to aim, and Ali won the first 2 rounds with a quick jab and combinations. But while Frazier attacked from the left, he could not hit tightly.
Seconds to go in the round. That was the best punch in the fight. 3. Round 3.
In the 3rd round, Frazier starts violently, but Ali quickly extinguishes the aggression. And then the round is relatively equal. But at the end of the round, Frazier hits with a left hook, and then delivers a series of punches, ending the round with an uppercut. In round 4, Frazier intensifies the already tough pressure. Ali has to throw out a lot of punches in order to restrain his opponent. But at the end of the round, Joe achieves his goal, inflicting 2 heavy blows and winning the round. At the beginning of the 5th round, Ali actively moves, but it does not last long. In general, the 5th round turns out to be competitive, but in the 6th round, Frazier is already in charge of the ring, since Ali throws out significantly less punches and therefore cannot hold back his opponent. It is noticeable that Ali is a little tired and needs to slow down the pace of the fight. So in the 7th round, he changes tactics. He often uses clinches and puts his forearm on the back of his opponent's head, and if possible holds this position while waiting for the referee's command to separate.
To keep his punches up, which he just did.
At the end of the round, being in the corner, Ali lowers his hands. But Frazier does not take advantage of this, but continues to attack the body.
Well for Ali that missed. That's it. The round is almost over. Both men. Joe looks like he's in a training session.
In the 8th round, Ali spends a lot of time at the ropes, and even when Frazier gave him some space, he remained at the ropes, which was not appreciated by the audience.
Rounder, no knockdowns. He has been making most of the clinches.
However, in the 9th round, Ali perked up noticeably, worked quickly, accurately, and dynamically. Except for a couple of episodes, the round was entirely controlled by Muhammad Ali. A lot of the energy expended in round 9 is reflected in how the 10th round develops.
Frazier trying to get Muhammad Ali to the ropes again.
Ali has a lot of good attacks, but Frazier's left hook hits the target often, enough that 2 of the 3 judges count the round in Joe's favor. Ali fights well in the 11th round and, feeling confident, stands with his back to the ropes, and then moves into the corner. Frazier does not forgive such liberties and seriously shakes Ali with 2 heavy hooks.
Holding on desperately. 30 seconds to go in the round. 30 seconds.
Ali does not easily withstand Frazier's subsequent attacks and almost falls, but he is saved by the ropes. Still, despite his position and knowing that only a few seconds remain in the round, and seeing that Frazier is tired, Ali mocks his opponent.
A round is over. A round is over. What a round.
Thought it would go this far.
In the 12th round, both fighters do look tired, but Frazier still makes successful attacks, while Muhammad Ali misses, and it's Frazier's turn to taunt his opponent.
Frazier laughs at him again. 13 of a 15-rounder.
In the 13th round, Muhammad Ali makes another comeback and has a great first half of the round, but then slows down and offers almost no resistance in the final minute, while Frazier delivers a strong blow in the last few seconds and tilts the round in his favor. The final round, Ali starts offensively, but then Frazier moves in for the attack and creates one of the most famous moments in boxing history. He chases Ali, throws another left hook, and sends his opponent to the canvas.
3, 4. Havoc in the fight.
After this, Frazier's strikes are on target, forcing Ali to use clinches. Despite this, Frazier is unable to develop his strikes any further. This continues until the end of the round. In the last minute, Ali throws a multi-hit combination, and Frazier responds in his usual style. Both boxers are exhausted, but the final attack is from Frazier. The result of the fight was Joe Frazier's victory by unanimous decision. But this was only the first chapter of the great Ali-Frazier confrontation. April 7, 2001. Pay-per-view bouts featuring participants from the lower weight categories are rare, but the rivalry between Marco Antonio Barrera and Naseem Hamed was so popular with the public that HBO did not hesitate to put this fight on the air or sell it through pay-per-view. The price to view the fight was considerable for the time, at $40. 310,000 pay-per-view tickets were sold. As of 2020, the Barrera-Hamed fight remains the most successful pay-per-view featherweight bout. Naseem Hamed went into the fight as a confident favorite. Pre-match layouts were 3-1, and in some cases even 4-1 in his favor. Barrera's guaranteed fee was $2 million. Hamed's guaranteed fee was $6 million. But in the end, he earned $8.5 million for the fight, which at the time made him the second highest paid boxer in Britain after Lennox Lewis. Hamed stated that he wanted to be remembered as the man who raised the bar for featherweight fees, and also brought the same spark to boxing as Muhammad Ali did. Hamed's fights were truly spectacular, thanks to his athleticism and his showmanship. In the U.S., Hamed also quickly gained fans. His American debut in 1997 against Kevin Kelly lasted only 4 rounds, but in those 4 rounds, each of the boxers hit the floor 3 times. He defeated the bulk of the division's top fighters, including Puerto Rican boxing legend Wilfredo Vasquez. Of his 15 fights in the featherweight division, Hamed finished 13 by knockout. Therefore, most observers agreed that Naseem Hamed was the strongest boxer of this weight. Overall, the Briton had a 35-0 track record, of which 31 were KOs. Another interesting point with the pre-match dealings was that both boxers were 27 years old. But if Hamed was considered a fighter in his prime, then Marco Antonio Barrera, at the same age, was called a veteran. The Mexican made his professional debut at the age of 15, and by the age of 27 had 55 fights. The longest break he had ever had taken between fights was after he had 2 defeats in a row from Junior Jones. In the first fight, he lost by knockout, although a disqualification was recorded in the official result, as Barrera's coach jumped into the ring before the referee could stop the fight. An interesting note, Naseem Hamed was present at the first Jones-Barrera fight, and if Barrera had won, then their match would have taken place back in 1997. In the second fight with Jones, Barrera lost on points and took what was a very long break for him, 10 months. Even in 2000, after his February war in the ring with Eric Morales, Barrera fought 3 more fights that same year. And after such a busy schedule, he went to fight Hamed just 4 months later. Marco Antonio Barrera was a classic Mexican boxer, and that style seriously let him down in those 2 fights against Junior Jones. But after these 2 setbacks, many noticed that Barrera's style began to change, and refined elements of classic boxing began to appear in him. In the eyes of the public, however, it still wasn't enough. An already pretty battered Mexican veteran versus a gifted British star with a heavy hit. Besides, Hamed's coach in this fight was Emmanuel Stewart. Many experts considered the fight easy money, both for Hamed and for the organizers. 28 out of 30 commentators predicted the victory of Naseem Hamed. Almost before the start of the fight, an unpleasant episode occurred for Barrera. When it was time to enter the ring, Marco Antonio was ready to leave the locker room. He was informed that Hamed had decided to retape his hands, and Barrera would have to wait. As a result, Barrera sat in the locker room for 30 minutes, not knowing when to enter the ring and how intensely to warm up. George Foreman, who commented on this fight, said that most likely Hamed did it on purpose in order to unsettle his opponent before entering the ring. However, in the first round, the left hook from Barrera unsettled Hamed himself. Nassim responded to the Mexican's attacks with a smile, and his smile was met with an accurate jab. This was one of those fights where the audience immediately knew that they had not wasted their money. They knew that an excellent fight awaited them. Big things were initially expected from Hamed, but as it turned out, the leading role in this performance was taken by his co-star.
Round one is all Barrera as Prince Nassim takes several power shots from the Mexican star.
Barrera fighting an intelligent, measured fighter. Briefly dazed him early in the round, later came on to land those.
To give advice, you got to work on his. Now he's got Barrera clowning a little bit. That's what you want, get out there.
Barrera refused to concede to his opponent in anything, and by the second round, passions began to heat up. Hamed went into the clinch, and Barrera moved Hamed to the ground. Hamed continued to hold Barrera by the neck. Barrera did not like the fact that he was viewed as a springboard to strengthen Hamed's status as a superstar in the United States. He did not like Hamed's arrogance, who had even tried to intentionally enter the ring in Barrera's corner and was blocked by the Mexican team. The episode mentioned earlier, with the delay in entering the ring, only added fuel to the fire. Barrera had been in this business for too long and knew perfectly well that his opponent had decided to play psychological games with him.
What are you waiting on? Two rights, then a left. Two lefts, and then a right. He hasn't found his rhythm yet.
Barrera lands a jab. Well, he's got enormous reflexes.
In round 3, Hamed looked a little better than in the previous 2 rounds and made some good attacks. Because of this, 2 out of 3 judges gave the round to him, although the decision was somewhat controversial. It might seem that the Briton began to find his rhythm, but Barrera took the 4th round without question.
Barrera ringing the right hand.
One shot.
Shooting the straight left down the middle. That's what Prince Nassim wants to do. Barrera goes to the body.
Every round, Barrera should send him to the corner.
Very composed, Barrera.
That was a headbutt there. You see?
Hands is gone. Big left hand by Prince Nassim.
The 5th round was taken by Hamed, though the 3rd minute turned out to be equal. However, in the end, Hamed landed a hard left hook and then a right hook to Barrera's torso.
He's doing more damage to you. Rather than saying value.
Trying to set up a right hand, or maybe wanting to.
Whether the Prince has been thrown off.
At the end of the 6th round, Hamed decided to play dirty, hitting the Mexican in the face with his forearm. Barrera responded and made him understand that he should not play those games.
That was lovely. While they were in close in a clinch, Hamed threw.
Before the start of the 7th round, Hamed's coach, Emmanuel Stewart, warned his boxer, not for the first time, that he was losing the fight, and if he continued in the same spirit, he would face the first defeat in his career. Hamed stepped up, but Barrera quite easily nullified Hamed's attacks with a fairly simple but effective technique. He would deliver a jab and then move to the left. Barrera constantly left the line of attack, and it seems that all of Hamed's beautiful combination work was disabled by a simple tactic. Because of this, almost all of Hamed's attacks turned into single hits, which were read by Barrera quite easily. In the 8th round, Barrera continued to prove his skill at interpreting Hamed by anticipating his use of a traditional British tactic and countering it. Nassim holds his hands low, and after his attack returns his hand to the same familiar position, and not to his chin. Interestingly, the Mexican did not rush to attack, which speaks of a clear plan for the fight and a tactical endurance.
You see, the Prince just will not finish up with a shot.
Fat chance.
The 9th round was developing relatively calmly, but towards the end, one of the most memorable moments of the fight took place, when Hamed charged to attack, but ran into a sweeping left hook by Barrera.
problem with Hamed. He throws that big left hand. When he misses, he is off.
In the 10th round, Hamed tried to turn the tide of the fight and even succeeded in attacking, but he failed to wrest control from his opponent's hands. Hamed believed that he was facing a fight with an ordinary boxer who would attack immediately from the first seconds. And Barrera himself constantly repeated before the fight that he would attack without interruption. But that evening, Hamed was opposed by a concentrated and well-trained counterpuncher. In this fight, Barrera only had to wait for his opponent to come to him. In many fights before, it was obvious that Hamed makes many mistakes in the attack. For instance, he often attacks with his chin high. In fights with other rivals, he got away with it thanks to his speed, reaction time, and maneuverability. But this evening, he had a rival of a different level. Barrera made meticulous analysis of his own 3 defeats from Jones and his performance in his fight with Erik Morales. This, together with the desire to progress and hone skills, produced excellent results. The world was presented with a completely new Marco Antonio Barrera, which by his example showed that it is never too late to develop new abilities and improve yourself. And Naseem Hamed had no approach to an opponent of this level of difficulty.
Look at the rest, and he's not taking that advice. He's going for it.
He's been on the wrong side of at least one decision here in Las Vegas. He doesn't want it to happen again.
In the 12th round, Hamed, knowing he was behind, swung wildly and missed Barrera, who in turn placed Hamed in a lock and slammed his head into the turnbuckle. It did not look like something emotional, but as an action with the expectation of finally finishing off the opponent from a psychological point of view. Considering Hamed's arrogant behavior before the fight and earlier in the ring, the audience accepted this episode with enthusiasm. But referee Joe Cortez deducted 1 point from Barrera, which was booed by the audience.
Before the fight. And if he loses, it's because it has been without a spell. Barrera, B-A-R-R-E-R-A.
You should be cool on that.
His moment of truth has turned into an hour of torture.
Despite this, Barrera won the fight by unanimous decision and was awarded the championship featherweight title. Even before the official announcement of the decision, Hamed's coach, Emmanuel Stewart, approached Barrera and congratulated him on his victory. Before this fight, Naseem Hamed said that he did not consider Barrera the most serious rival in his career, and as a result, Barrera turned out not to be just the most serious rival, he turned out to be the one who ended Hamed's career. Under the contract, Naseem had the right to demand an act of revenge, but he did not use it, and disappeared from sight for a whole year, and then returned to the ring to fight an unknown boxer, for which he was booed by the public. This was the end of Naseem Hamed's professional career, but as for Barrera, his career took to new heights, and he had several high-profile fights ahead of him, including a confrontation with Erik Morales, Manny Pacquiao, Juan Manuel Marquez, John Lee Tapia, and Paul Anthony Ayala. Barrera retired 10 years after his fight with Hamed in 2011 and began working as a commentator on Mexican television alongside Julio Cesar Chavez. In 2017, Marco Antonio Barrera was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Please do not forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any new episodes about the boxing legends of the past. See you next time.